Hi, I'm Celia Boothman, founder of LTR Coaching, and I'd like to welcome you to the Inspired Triathletes podcast, where I'll be bringing you stories from female triathletes and taking on topics that are important to women in the sport. Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today we're chatting with Dr. Sara Black. She's a former college swimmer who's turned her passion for movement into a career helping others. She's also a physical therapist who specialises in pelvic health, pregnancy and postpartum care. I always get that word wrong. She's also the creator of the Triathlete project, which is a bit of a passion side project for her, where she helps swimmers, bikers and runners to train smarter and stronger. So I'm really looking forward to diving in today. If you could just give us a little bit of background into how you got into pelvic health, physical therapy, and you've got a really strong background in swimming and whether that had any impact or influence in that area.
Sure. Yes, and thanks again for having me, and just super excited to see where the conversation takes us. But yes, I grew up swimming competitively. I started at the age of 4 on through college, and no, I think that had a huge impact on my getting into physical therapy and being really into just health and fitness in general. So growing up and growing up in the world where we overtrained and we specialized too early in sport. And that was definitely me. I was just a swimmer and I loved swimming and it was a huge part of my life. But overuse injuries came along with that. So being in physical therapy and having a personal trainer very early on to learn a little bit more about my body and be able to continue the sport as long as I wanted to. That I do think played a huge role in getting into physical therapy. But right out of school, I started as a personal trainer and a massage therapist. And so the natural route was to get into physical therapy where I could combine both of those great skills. So yeah, I've been a physical therapist for about 9 years now and knew very early on that pelvic health was really what I wanted to focus on and specialize in. I think I'm biased, but I think that the majority of our injuries do extend from the core, and if we don't have a very solid foundation and solid core, then that is going to impact things up and down the chain. So I am the owner now of Zia Physiotherapy. I live just outside of Washington, D.C. and do mobile visits for my patients. So I get to see them in their environments, head to the for treatment, and really spend that one-on-one focused time, full hours with my patients. And that's from patients from new moms to triathletes to active men and women, but really just helping them build strength and durability and confidence in their bodies with what they love to do. Yeah.
So when you said you like to see people in their environment, how does that impact like how you work with them? Is there, you notice habits or patterns of behavior or movement in those environments?
Yes. So I think very specifically to the prenatal, postpartum stages. Yes, the physical side of things. So how are we breastfeeding? How are we picking up kiddos, even toddlers, but newborns? How are you navigating your own stairs? But also, how are things going mentally and emotionally? Do we have a lot of clutter and we're newly postpartum? Are we handling things well? Do we have support, partner support and family support? So that's in that stage of life, it's really powerful to see individuals that way. But then also when it comes to their sport, being able to see them in their training environment. So whether that's on their bike trainer, on their treadmill, in their gym space, that's helpful too. So
Yeah, it's like in real life rather than being in a different room where you're performing in a way, aren't you, for someone else, or being told to do stuff that you
right.
might not do at home. Yeah, that's interesting about the kind of like carrying and picking up children because I didn't give it much thought, honestly. It's just
No,
like you're tired and you just do what you can to get through a lot of the time. So yeah, okay. And there's
and
also like that I did go to someone who did somatics. Have you heard of somatics before?
yeah,
Like, yeah, so he did that and he was saying, well, how did you carry your children? Which hip was it, this hip? And I was like, yep. It's like it's always on that side. So you kind of do you see a lot of that kind of favoring one side or that kind of imbalance? Does it translate into the pelvis, like carrying a child on one side?
100%. Yeah, your body definitely tells your story. And so that with respect to pelvic health and your deep core, that shows up just as you mentioned. So misalignment throughout the hips and the pelvis, but also rib flare on one side versus the other, generally the side that we tend to carry on. Being able to create kind of a shelf for kiddos, for heavier children, can really throw things out of alignment and out of balance, out of sync, and can impact things from head to toe. So
Mm.
yes, definitely that shows up a whole bunch in what I do. So
Yeah. And with that, so you mentioned flared ribs. Would that affect your breathing in some way as well?
absolutely. Yeah. So breathing, it is just with respect to the pregnant woman, it is totally normal for ribs to expand and flare. We need to make room for baby. Uh,
Mm.
Sometimes those ribs don't go back to baseline on their
Okay.
own. And so that at that point, it's tapping into very specific muscles to help. I think of the core as a canister, but to help the core canister kind of get back to balance and get back to neutral. But that impact on breathing will certainly have an impact on the pelvic floor and how that's functioning. Your breathing diaphragm and your pelvic floor work in parallel. So
Okay.
it's all connected. Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting because I've always I'm keen on like core strength and I think it is like you say it's really important for stopping or helping to prevent injuries. And yeah, you see people don't always have that core strength on the bike. You need it quite a lot. And I don't know if people really understand how much it impacts on everything really. It's not just being on the bike, it's like your daily life, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
So
And yeah.
yeah, go on.
Just being on the bike too, that your pelvis is one of your main contact points. So
Mm,
we're not stable, supported throughout the whole core, that can have a huge impact on how you're functioning on the bike for sure. And so for pregnant women, that those huge changes in posture, that's where, and we were talking about bike fittings, that's where we 100% need a bike fit postpartum if we're returning to sport,
mm,
to maybe put a band-aid on some things and try to support where we need a little bit more support while you're healing.
mm.
But yeah, really making those adjustments on the bike can have it is just essential. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because your body's like, I don't think we appreciate because you can't see all the changes, can you? I mean, there's the obvious change of a big bump, but you don't see everything that's going on internally and structurally with your body. And so we don't really know what's happening, and you just assume everything's fine and gone back to normal.
Yeah.
So when you're working with people that are in that stage of life, when they're in their kind of postpartum or pregnant, Do you see people throughout that whole process? Do you have contact with them, or do you usually work with someone like before or after, or is it during the whole, or does it vary? Probably varies.
It certainly varies. I think generally we're getting much, much better with being proactive versus reactive.
Okay.
In a perfect world, I'm seeing a woman who's considering getting pregnant, who is trying to conceive and in that fertile window. And so getting a baseline, because
Mm,
there's so much about diastasis, abdominal separation, pelvic floor strength, and if we don't have that baseline pre-pregnancy information, it's really hard to say, okay, well, maybe this was your normal before pregnancy
mm,
and you're doing just fine. But yes, I do have a birth prep package, kind of a prenatal postpartum package to help with anything that's going on during pregnancy, but then really focusing care on what what mom's birthing preferences are, right? So if we are
right.
for a vaginal delivery, anything can happen, right? But if that is the goal, then we need to work on different laboring positions and what it means to actually push, and should we be pushing, and how can, back to breath, but how can your breath really help you in lengthening the pelvic floor and setting the pelvic floor up for success, and trying
Mm,
to prevent um, more significant tearing, prolapse, forceps, vacuum delivery, as best.
yeah.
So, so yeah, to long, long answer, right, for short, but would my preference is to see pregnant women and to see them pretty quickly postpartum too, within the first
Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks getting started. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense because, like you say about the baseline, I mean, there's quite often you get advice and it's just generic, isn't it? It's like, well, you should be doing this, and it's like, well, how do you know? Because you don't know what that person was like before. You don't necessarily know what that person was like before or after. So
exactly.
you've got nothing to compare it to. So that's great if you can do that individually for people.
Yeah, and
Um,
also how fit someone is, how much they have been exercising. Women are often told during pregnancy that they need to take it easy. That's still
mm,
advice. And no, you can't run. No, you can't bike. Biking's a little bit different. We have to be careful for safety, but yeah, helping a woman continue to do what she would like to do during pregnancy, because movement is truly key in that stage, and will set the stage for how someone's feeling postpartum. So
mm.
yeah.
So how can, if you are a triathlete, you're an active individual, how can you sort of support your pelvic health? Are there any sort of, after just saying you're given generic advice, are there any generic or general advice that you can give to people who are in that stage of life?
Or I think the biggest one is that Kegels aren't appropriate for everybody.
Right.
Doctors are very quick to say, oh, just let's get started with your Kegels. But I would argue more often than not that the pelvic floor really needs to work on being lengthened and
Okay.
being strong in that lengthened state. Um, Certainly, if a vaginal delivery is the goal, we need to make sure that we can lengthen the pelvic floor appropriately. And so that advice is still out there. Just continue to Kegel, and that's just one
Mm.
piece to the puzzle with the pelvic floor. Just like your arm needs to completely bend and completely straighten, the pelvic floor does as well. Uh,
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, so for people that don't know, can you explain what Kegel is? If
yeah,
anyone doesn't know.
That is a term that is thrown out there all too often with the pelvic floor. The Kegel is a voluntary muscle contraction of the pelvic floor. So it's your squeeze and your lift if you're actively trying to contract the pelvic floor,
Mm,
which is important. It's important. I think I like to think of the pelvic floor as an elevator.
okay.
Level, ground level, levels 1 through 5. And just like other skeletal muscle, there are a whole bunch of differences between the pelvic floor muscles and other skeletal muscle, biceps, hamstrings, quadriceps. But similar to those muscles, we need to be able to work through the full range. We need to be able to go all the way down to the basement and all the way up to level 5
Mm,
without feeling restricted. And there's a whole bunch of the factors that kind of play a role in someone being able to work through that range. But all too often, there's a whole bunch of other things going on in that stage of life, and so we tend to hold on to tension and
mm,
become guarded and overactive in the pelvic floor, and that needs to be addressed first before focusing just on Kegels. I rarely prescribe those voluntary muscle contractions alone.
okay. So how do you lengthen the pelvic floor? How do
Yeah,
you do that?
it certainly depends on the person.
Right,
Back to that diaphragmatic breathing. We're using the breath, we're using the breathing diaphragm to naturally get the pelvic floor muscles to lengthen with a good strong inhale, and being
right.
to expand the ribs out like bucket handles to really get that good length down in the pelvic floor. So that is a great place to start. Sometimes the pelvic floor muscles develop tender points and knots. It's very similar to what we feel in the upper neck and in other
Mm,
places. And you could do a million breaths per day, and those pelvic floor muscles are not going to release and lengthen like you want them to. So sometimes there's internal digital releasing, or there's pelvic trigger wands on the market to assist with that. But sometimes there's massage and
okay.
myofascial releasing that needs to happen too. So
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. I'd never thought of like, I have heard of people being too tense in that area. And I remember being taught, when I was younger, my mum, hold your stomach in, it's good to sort of tense, like not tense your stomach, but hold your stomach in or something. She's not like that now, but it was something that people said, and you kind of stand there all tense like that. And it's probably, I don't think that's good for you, is it? Like long term to be in that tense state.
and you bring up a really great point. As women, we tend to draw in for aesthetic reasons.
Mm,
I think we're getting much better as a society with that, and being more accepting. But drawing your stomach in if you have any kind of bloating, or to appear more skinny, that plays a huge role in how your pelvic floor muscles are functioning, and tends to contribute to overactivity of that pelvic floor.
mm,
So wearing tight-waisted, high-waisted skirts and leggings can have an impact on that core canister as well, what we were talking about. So
okay.
um, if so leakage, urinary leakage, bladder leakage is a very popular pelvic health concern. 1 in 3 women experience some sort of pelvic floor dysfunction, and that makes up a good bulk of it. And generally, we're thinking, oh, well, my pelvic floor muscles are too weak,
Mm,
have that good squeeze, and that's why I'm leaking, because I can't hold in my urine. But sometimes the pelvic floor muscles are too tense, and so they're having a hard
mm,
time getting down to that basement level and accepting a change in pressure in the bladder with coughing, sneezing, laughing, and
Okay.
it can, it's
Oh,
very,
yeah, I have heard that before, that it can be due to tension rather than, not having the strength or the tension in the muscles. So how would you know like which way it was? Would you be able to tell, or I guess?
generally not easily.
Mm,
It's hard for us, first off, because we're not really taught about our pelvic floor as we're growing up. Um,
mm,
it's in a somewhat invisible location, so that, and then we're talking about teeny tiny muscles, so we have a hard time sensing what they're doing and when
mm.
they're doing it. So it can be super hard to tell on your own. But that would be a main reason for getting in with a pelvic health specialist, physical therapist, to determine what's going on with your pelvic floor and what the main driver is for your symptoms. But um,
Yeah, you wouldn't know yourself because yeah, you have no idea. And I suppose you could make a guess as to whether you tended to tense up or you didn't, but it's going to be a bit of a
yeah, and I think some other symptoms tend to show up. That would be your first cue. I have a really great questionnaire on my website to kind of check off yes or no. And if you mark three or more, then we most likely have some pelvic floor dysfunction. But that can stem from bladder urgency, frequency, feeling like you have to, if you get the urge to go, you really have to go. You feel like you're not
mm,
gonna take it. Constipation, pain with intimacy, pain with use of feminine products. That those are all good indicators that we might have some overactivity in the pelvic floor.
okay, okay. That's
Low back
good.
pain. Low back pain is a big one. How many of
Okay.
us have ever had low back pain? Um, and that's a good majority of the population, but 95% of folks with low back pain have pelvic floor dysfunction of some kind.
All right. Yeah,
It's
that's interesting.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm lucky I haven't had that.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, it's in my upper back, like
yeah.
like across the mid part that my mine tends to go when it goes, not at the lower back. Although it did happen once. Oh, it's horrible. So bad, lower back pain. It's like you can't forget about it, can you?
No, it's debilitating, and there are a whole bunch of people that gosh, percentage wise, I think it's upwards of 70%
Wow.
of adults have experienced some low back pain
Mm.
um, in in their lifetime, and that's huge. That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is when it's like I know my mother-in-law has low back and it's like all the time and she just can't sort of stay still because it's so uncomfortable. Yeah, it's not nice.
Yeah,
But it can be fixed by the sound of it with
that's right.
some
And
care and attention.
yeah, certainly starting with the deep core muscles that we're talking about. And, we've already mentioned the breathing diaphragm and the pelvic floor muscles. You also have your deep abdominal muscles, the transverse abdominis, and the
Mm,
teeny tiny muscles lining your spine, the multifidi. All of those muscles make up the canister, so to speak. It's the best way to kind of describe that throughout your midsection. And they are meant to prepare the body for movement, where we don't, if things are functioning well, that's on a subconscious, happening on a subconscious level. Um, and that's again to prepare us so that our large glute muscles and quad thigh muscles, hamstring muscles can propel us and actually take us through the movements that we love to do, like triathlon. So
yeah, yeah, definitely. So when people are returning, so obviously like your abdominal muscles when you're pregnant, it's quite difficult to like look after or work those abdominal muscles, and everything's kind of stretching, isn't it? So have you got any tips for people returning to running and biking and swimming after they've had a baby when that's happened? And can they maintain some level of core
Mhm.
strength throughout pregnancy? How easy is that to do?
Yeah. So as far as focusing on the core during pregnancy, kind of starting there, that is essential for how you're going to feel postpartum. And
Okay.
um, again, I'm biased, but meeting with a pelvic health specialist to get your baseline,
Mm,
and to really sort out what how the new posture and new changes in your body are having an impact on how you're moving and how you're functioning. Um, Big key things postpartum. Um, Certainly getting in with somebody that can help you tap back into your muscles that have been lengthened for several months.
mm,
And the heavy hitters are the abdominals that have to lengthen, have to separate to make room for baby. That's totally normal. And the pelvic floor that just takes on that extra pressure and load. Um, we have to be mindful and respectful of healing times. You cannot rush that when returning to sport and returning to activity. More specific to running, I'm generally waiting a good 3 months until I recommend returning to running just because of the healing times.
mm.
So at 6 to 9 months postpartum, we're only 67% healed throughout the
Okay.
fascia, the tissue that connects everything together, muscles, tendons, our connective tissue is not healed yet. And then tacking on top of that breastfeeding and these new postures, holding kiddo constantly, creates other muscle imbalances. Not to mention ones that have lost their muscle mass and function because you were pregnant, because of growing chest and growing stomach, all of that. All of that should be assessed and focused on postpartum to get you back to sport.
Mm,
And your body's going to be different. It is you have a new baseline, and that goes into new bike fit, running gait analysis, swimming analysis, specific to triathlon, but checking in on how your body's moving, making sure that you have a personalized progressive strengthening program to get you back to those things safely.
mm. And so would you say like strength training is probably more of a priority than getting back into your sport?
Yes. And um, definitely, I think for triathletes in general, physiologically, we need it.
Mm,
I look at strength training for us as non-negotiable. Um, and that's at every stage of life, because
mm,
so much load with swim, bike, and run on our tissues, on muscles, tendons, ligaments, and um, we have to be durable. So durable,
mm,
just more miles and more time on feet. It's having that tissue capacity matched to the demands that we're placing on it with training. And then that's more important if you're postpartum
mm.
because of the healing, because of the tissue healing. So yeah, I am big on strength training. That's a big part of my work is offering personalized strength training for individuals
Right.
that want to be active, and that that's all sorts of sports, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like a foundation, you're building a foundation again, really, aren't you, when you've had a baby? So use
Yeah,
it, making sure everything kind of moves the right way, I suppose, before you go back into those intense sessions. I was terrible at that, I will say. I didn't know.
right. It's because it's hard. It's hard, especially when you're feeling pretty good. You're like, oh, okay, I
Mm,
can go do this. I think my body's ready. And you want to get moving because that's a big part of you and your life, right? Just
Mm,
able to get back into it. But this whole concept of being able to bounce back quickly, it's just physiologically not possible.
mm.
Though some individuals make it seem that way, we
Yeah.
have the full picture. We don't really know what's going on. And maybe it's not showing up after your first kiddo, but maybe it does catch up with you second delivery, third delivery, and so on. So
Mm. I think it's a lot better now. There's a lot more people sort of saying, don't rush back into things. Whereas I was just like, there was more of a sort of atmosphere of, come on, bounce back. And it was praised at how great, and it still happens now. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's a bit less like that now. And people are a bit more honest about what they're doing and how they're doing it. I follow a few people that have just had babies. And it's interesting to see how they're describing it. They're sort of talking about how they've tried to get back and it's been frustrating and then they've backed up. It's like it's a bit of finding out where you are and what you can do, and then
yeah.
you can't just race back into things and expect to be okay. Although some
Oh, no.
people will be.
Oh, and that's, I think there's other reasons for that. But no, I think as a society and as women, we are much more what's we're just much more supportive of each other, and yes,
Mm,
that information is out there. The whole world of pelvic health has totally shifted for the better, and women are more educated and they do know more about pelvic health, and the fact that
yeah.
that doesn't just mean that we're going to focus on the pelvic floor muscles. It means we're going to get you back to what you want to do and what you love to do, chasing these kiddos around, but also being back in your sport. So
And I think a lot of the time you see people online or whatever, and they're maybe an elite athletes, they've got a load of support. But I know the people that I follow, they're actually talking about the support that they're getting. So it's like most people don't have that level of support with, childcare and them being able to invest time in getting back to how they were before, because it does take time. It's not like you just switch instantly. And if you haven't got the hours in the day, then it makes it harder and it takes longer. So
and
yeah.
that your support system is huge, and yeah, that's very valid point. Yeah, yeah, and not even to mention hormones and that whole side of things, but um, that's having an impact on your recovery and tissue healing as well. So,
Mm.
and then cesarean section. So now we
Oh,
have
yeah.
how's that affecting your trunk mobility, and being able to run and bike and swim. So yeah,
Yeah. I had a C-section the first time and it was like, yeah, different, totally different experience to vaginal birth. So yeah, I've had both and I can definitely say it's different.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
So
I think it's long. It did take me. Well, I could feel, I'd had abdominal surgery basically, and it's pretty extreme abdominal surgery, isn't it? You don't think it's much, but it is quite a lot.
right, and you're exactly right. It is deep. It's a deep incision, right?
Mm,
All the way to the uterus to get kiddo. And that is impacting all of the layers of tissue.
mm,
So certainly all of the abdominal muscles. And then we've got scar tissue. Everything's connected, right? So we
mm,
hip flexors in that area. We've got the bladder, we've got the GI system, and that scar tissue, the collagen reorganization of that scar really needs to be respected and needs to be addressed in a personalized manner as you go through
Mm. Yeah,
recovery.
I could feel it for a long time, like where the scar was. It was like quite, that lasted for I don't know how long, I can't remember now, but it was quite a long time. And every now and again you'd feel it and be like, okay. Yeah.
And aside from delivering kiddos, just abdominal surgeries in general, and recognizing that appendectomies and
Mm,
tucks, abdominoplasties, these are huge. They're having a huge impact on your core and how that's
yeah.
fun. So yeah, scar tissue is a big one that can stay with you for a while. And
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's yeah. I'm pretty sure it's still like some of the, well, scar tissue does it ever like completely go away? It doesn't, does it? For a surgery that big, it wouldn't.
not necessarily, right? But every body is different. Your genetic makeup is different, and how your tissue is going to respond.
Mm,
The best thing for scar tissue is movement. So
mm.
not rest by any means, but you just do the best that you can. But sometimes that scar tissue works against you a little bit. So
Yeah, like pulling and tightness in that area. Yeah.
it's not so much getting rid of the scar tissue, it's just making sure that that scar tissue can move in every direction that you're we're talking about the abdomen specifically, but every direction
Mm.
moving, that scar tissue needs to go with it. Yeah. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. And so moving, but gently, not like going out and running a marathon or something like that straight after, but like walking and things like that would be suitable.
oh yeah, yeah, and that's one main reason behind, as long as you are healing well and you're able, walking every single day, short walks, but yes, get out in the sun, get outside, get your walk, get some movement. That is a big one. As soon as you feel like you are able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. How about like pushing? Because a lot of people have got pram that they have to push. How's that for recovery?
Pushing strollers
Yeah,
or uh yeah.
not good.
Well, you definitely want some support early on, but
Mm,
um, that's not always an option. So that is the idea behind getting into exercise, personalized exercise within by 2 to 3 weeks postpartum. Once
okay.
bleeding is calming down a little bit and you feel like you can manage some exercise and some load, we need to load appropriately to be able to tolerate pushing a stroller, because pushing a stroller is just a constant front plank if you think about it. So
Yeah,
so not being afraid to or hesitant to do those movements, but making sure that you're doing them safely. And again, that's a big part of my work is just making sure we're meeting your body where it's at, allowing it to heal appropriately. But part of that healing is going ahead and loading that tissue to promote the healing. So
yeah. Because I know it is like with a C-section it is really difficult because you kind of like it's frustrating and you want to go out. And I remember trying to push the pram, and it was like I think it was a week after we went into a really busy uh town, and I was like, oh, it was really hard because there's people everywhere, and then you've got, trying to put it up the curb. I mean, my mum was with me, so she helped me as well. But it was like, this is intense. This is like, quite, just pushing that thing and avoiding people because you don't realize how much you're using your abdominals in so many like little situations, just sort of like tweaking here and there when you're moving things, and it was kind of traumatic.
it is, right. And that's the great thing about our bodies is that your body will tell you.
Yeah,
And as long as we are good about listening to it, and again, that support system is huge in that stage. But yeah, as long as we're listening to the body and progressing in a meaningful way, then we tend to end up okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm okay. So I must have been all right. Must have done something right. Um, okay, so I think we've covered a lot on pregnancy and postpartum. So what are some issues that can happen as we get older, with our pelvic health or just generally for triathletes?
Mhm. Yeah, so kind of moving into that next stage would be perimenopause and menopause, and starting in our mid 30s, sarcopenia, so that age-related muscle mass loss starts to happen. That's it's
Don't want to think about it. Being
oh,
that early as well, it's like, oh my God. Yeah.
mid 30s, and it's like, okay, now our body's working against us a little bit. And
Okay.
goes back to the strength training. My my recommendation, especially for triathletes, where we tend to skip the strength training.
Mm,
We've got to have 2 to 3 times a week of total body strengthening, 30 to 45 minutes, heavy heavy repetitions, working our way up to heavy, uh, 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 6 repetitions to try to combat that. Um,
mm,
and that is super important. The earlier you start, the more likely you are to be consistent and to stick with it. And so that's just super important in that stage. And it's also a time where we are generally masking symptoms by birth control, synthetic
okay.
hormones, and it's just a tricky stage of life. So that plays a role in everything. And I have opinions about that. I think there's other ways to go about that, and there's
Mm,
preferred birth control options over others for that reason. But that's where our supplements come into play as far as managing symptoms and yeah, that's I think the biggest thing with respect to physical therapy is the strength training and making sure
mm,
safely. But there's a whole bunch of other factors, and making sure that you feel like you have a good support team, someone that can help you with functional nutrition, the strength training side of things, mental health, if that's necessary, and having your team, your support team through a
mm.
stage.
Yeah, it is a tricky time, with so much going on. There's just a lot, isn't there? And I think I'm assuming you kind of mean about birth control, like contraceptive pill, like artificial hormones is not ideal. Like for me anyway, personally, I have a very similar opinion because I went off them like quite early because I thought I don't like the idea that I'm having artificial hormones in my body and I don't really know the impact it's having on me. If you're having them and you've been taking them for so long, then it is like you say, masking things and you don't really know what's going on underneath. So I came off them quite early and did other stuff, but yeah, did other stuff. That sounds a bit weird. It's like what were you doing?
Yeah, more holistic.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be on hormone.
Yeah, and I think and that starts with women in their 20s. If we're having debilitating period pain, for instance, that's a
Mm,
reason folks go on birth control and are
yeah.
prescribed. Um, the big question is why, and yes, the birth control form of contraception is going to be very effective in that, but we're not meant to have debilitating pain. Um,
No.
cramps and a response to the inflammatory process, okay. But it does. It starts in adolescence and in your 20s, and are we masking something that maybe should have been diagnosed a long time ago? And are you paying
Mm.
in your late 30s and 40s? Things, and what I'm speaking to is things like endometriosis,
Yeah.
things that will continue to get worse over time. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, but synthetic hormones and what that will do to our tissue health and yeah, just the body, as you mentioned, it's just what's that doing to our body, and is that the right move? And sometimes it is,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's not. A lot of
Yeah. I mean, everything's got a payoff and a disadvantage, hasn't it? So you've got to weigh up, like, is the payoff worth the whatever the negative effects are? Anything that you take or do, or just literally everything you've got to weigh up those things with your decisions. So, like you say, for some people that is going to help them totally, and other people it's not. And there's other ways that you can manage whatever it is you're trying to manage. So, yeah.
and my big frustration with that is we aren't able to make informed decisions when we don't know what our other options are.
Yeah, exactly.
All that we're being offered, or very common in the 40s range that we're talking about, uterine ablations. What are our other options? What's going on here? What that's a big part of this perimenopause menopausal state.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a big one. I treat women often in this stage of life that have never had children and are now experiencing pain with intercourse, urgency, frequency, and
Okay.
it goes back to, okay, what is this because of an estrogen concern, lack of estrogen? Do we need a little bit of support there? Have we been overworking our pelvic floor muscles in our sport for years now? So sometimes 15, 20 years at this point. And is that catching up to us?
Yeah.
And so, yes, that's another popular group of women that I tend to see is, okay, now some things are catching up to us and need to be addressed.
Yeah, it is like that age. You kind of think,
Yeah,
so you could get away with not doing the strength training, but you can't now. You could get away with doing all sorts of stuff, and it's like, no. And I think being prepared for that, like you said, we know that from the age of like mid-30s, we start to lose muscle mass. If you can start early and get in there and start being proactive about these things, then it's not such a whack on the head. Sometimes I think you can kind of manage things a little bit better if you're prepared and you're kind of thinking about the future a little bit more. It
right.
definitely helps.
It's much easier to be proactive than reactive. It is by no means like it's never too late to start that. It's just harder. It's much harder if it hasn't been part of your life. And I think that's where youth sports are getting a little bit better. We are getting to use strength training. We know that that's not having the impact on growth and growth plates like we once thought. And so I think that will help. That's going to take a little bit of time to.
Yeah, it sort of has to filter through and with the next generation and things, doesn't it? I guess we've still got some old ideas out there, I think, that need to be kind of discounted or like adapted and evolved a little bit.
Right.
Yes. So if you're in perimenopause and menopause, you do analysis of run gait and bike fit. Would those kind of things change as well? Like, does anything happen with your, I guess like with changing in muscle mass, things are going to shift and your body composition might shift, or that could impact you.
Absolutely. It could very well have an impact. So, just age related changes in our joints, especially if we've been doing a sport for many years. Do we have a little bit less hip mobility that you can't stretch your way out of, for instance?
Mm,
And then, yes, we'll need to make some changes on the bike, and with your running, and maybe shoe support. What kinds of shoes are we wearing for that? So yeah, all of that's part of the longevity of sport, just monitoring over time, and making sure we're allowing you to perform at your peak, whatever that is, and whatever age and stage you're going through. But I so just anecdotally, right? So part of the perimenopausal concerns too for actually being able to perform in your sport, it's helping women manage um, performing and racing during the luteal phase, for instance, when
mm.
it's feeling absolutely crummy and nauseous and low on energy. uh, I just experienced that at Ironman Wisconsin last weekend.
Okay.
Usually I've just been lucky not having to race in that stage, but just as a perimenopausal woman, it's really starting to have an impact on my performance, and I can improve that to some extent with supplements, and the functional nutrition side of things.
Mm.
But that's a whole other, aside from the strength training and whatnot, that's something else that we have to consider, and something else I can help with too. So
Yeah, so like preparing and being okay with if it isn't all perfect and doesn't all go to plan, because it does, life's like that
it,
somehow, isn't it?
it is.
Yeah.
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 And
So how
especially,
did it go? How did it go?
oh, that was my first Ironman.
Oh wow.
Um, I keep saying it was the hardest thing that I have ever done, and it was I got into long distance triathlon 2 years ago. I've been in the sport. I decided after my swimming career that I might as well try triathlon. I've got one part down. So
Yeah.
I've been in the sport for a good 15 years.
Wow.
But the long distance triathlon, I decided to kind of go for that a couple years back. And so I've completed 7 half Ironmans, and I absolutely love that distance. I
Yeah.
like that you can still race that distance.
Yeah.
The Ironman was a little bit different. It's just survival mode.
Mm.
I'm so happy that I did it. I just think that's a huge accomplishment for anybody that can do that. But it's hard. It'll be a while before I do the next one.
Yeah. I remember lying on the floor going, I'm never doing that again.
I said that. I
Yeah.
that definitely said that a couple of times. But yeah, it's just so rewarding. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
my body can really do that. And that's incredible. That's just, yeah, it's a big accomplishment. So
Yeah. And even though you were in that luteal phase, you still, it went okay. Were you thinking about that during the race? Like, not
well,
really.
luckily I started my period. It came early.
Oh no.
But I was more excited about that because once my period starts, things go much better. So
Yeah.
it started a couple of days before. So there's logistics to manage with that,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
but it's much, much better than how I've been feeling in the luteal phase lately. But yeah, I just was very consistent with my diet, and again, supplements, iodine, magnesium,
Mm.
think that can be super helpful for those luteal phase symptoms, the yucky stuff that we get. So
Yeah, that sucks if you're going into a race as well, because you want to be feeling really excited about it and you're just like, oh God, really like not. That's
especially
good.
during taper, and it's like, okay, is this the taper or is this my
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And you don't always know the difference either, I think, with those, I every now and then I get a really weird mood and it's just like, where has this come from? I don't understand it. And it'll last like 24 hours. I'll just be horrendous. And then I'll manage to get myself out of it somehow. I don't know how. But it does come from nowhere and it's quite extreme. It's not a pleasant experience. But it doesn't happen that often though. So
yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, this I've learned how to manage it now as well. I just go out for a long walk on my own and tell
Yes.
everyone else to leave me alone.
I was listening to one of your episodes and you said
Yeah.
11-mile walk and I was better.
Yeah, I know. Well, I had to do it the other day. It wasn't 11 I went and slept in the car. It was just like, oh my God, it was awful. Yeah, just, I don't know. It's like I need to just switch off and I don't want anyone around me. And yeah, very weird.
It's and we're still generally like in go 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 mode, and really at the peak of our career too.
Mm,
It's a really tough time, but I think helping women through it and recognizing that you will come out on the other side
yeah,
better and more feeling more balanced and more centered and more confident in your body. Just have to get through some not so great things, and that's a big part of why we need to promote movement and just staying active and staying
yeah.
things that bring you joy. It's,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I think, and I think also there's the sort of mental aspect of it as well of like, it's not, you don't have to give up and be but I was talking about this the other day. It's like you don't want to do that, but you also don't have to be like this amazing super person that does it all either. There needs to be some kind of balance because you can't try to be young forever. It's just impossible and why would you want to anyway, to be honest? It's like I I wouldn't want to be young again, and there's a lot of wisdom that comes with age that I think we don't acknowledge in our culture and we don't really respect as much as we could do. And I think if you can think to yourself, no, I've got that, and actually appreciate that about yourself rather than thinking, oh, I'm being old and you have these kind of conversations in your head and it's like, no, it's having wisdom and experience. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, it's difficult. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent, as I said, I probably would.
no, yeah, this is it. This is what I see day in and day out. It's this is life. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah. No,
yeah.
it's an interesting sort of time of our lives for sure. So if people want to get some help with, what, tell us what you do because you do all sorts of things. Just run through what you do with people.
Yes. So I am primarily treating again as we talked about through Zia physiotherapy. That's my practice, and am a treating physical therapist. And so that's the bulk of what I do. I again offer the in-home visits, but also virtual consultations. There's certainly times and place for that option, but always checking in to see if this is something that we could do virtually, whether it's the personalized strength training, the running gait analysis, swim analysis, sometimes bike fitting if there's some glaring issues that we can kind of go through. But virtual consultations can be super helpful. I have had a lot of experience with that. I think it does take some practice. It can be tricky.
Mm,
Yeah, but that is something that I offer, and along with in-home visits if anyone's just outside of DC in the Northern Virginia area.
yeah. Okay. And how do people get in touch with you if they want to find out? more, they can go on to, is Zia Physiotherapy the best place to get in touch?
Yep, my website is ZIA physio.com. And my Instagram, I do, social media isn't my forte for sure, but I try to post my thoughts on everything that we've talked about today
Okay.
through there. So that's Zia Physiotherapy. And
Okay.
those are the main ones. The link to the Triathlete project is on the Zia website.
Yeah.
And that, again, as you mentioned, is more so my passion project, trying to isolate specific injuries and specific concerns that triathletes face, whether it's swim, bike, or run. I have some videos in there with some exercises to get you started, so you don't feel like you're lost with those injuries.
Okay, that sounds really helpful. So I'll put all those links in the notes below so people can check them out. But thank you so much for your time. It's been really great chatting with you. And yeah, what's next for you, triathlon wise? Have you got anything else coming up or?
I did in Wisconsin, I did make it to Kona.
Oh
So
wow, well done.
I feel like that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I'm going to do one more full Ironman. But yeah, we'll take a little bit of an active break here and then get back into things next season with half Ironmans. Hopefully, just continue to grow in the sport because I'm still a little bit new to
The
everything.
long distance, yeah, it's like it's different, isn't it? Different thing. And I think from half iron to full iron is a very big change. You know, it
Oh yeah,
seems like it's a big difference.
yes, yeah. It's more so about the fuel. So I think I've got some things to learn and practice.
Mm,
But yeah, that's it. I love the sport, and as long as it makes me happy, I love the training. As long as that's the case, we'll keep it up.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. Oh, well, congratulations. You'll love Kona. Okay, well, thank you very much. And yeah, you have a nice rest of your day.
Same to you.
Take care. Thanks for listening today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye for now.